My first visit to Universal Studios Osaka in 2024 was an absolute blast, except for one tiny little gorilla-shaped thing missing from the park. Right after we left, the brand new Donkey Kong Country opened. That's right, we missed the groundbreaking boom coaster minecart madness, and we didn't get to meet Donkey Kong himself. And although I tried to fill the Donkey Kong-shaped hole in my heart with bananas and playing the bongo drums, nothing helped the primal monkey brain urges to get back to Universal and experience Donkey Kong Country once and for all. So I stocked up on bananas, traded them in for a plane ticket to Japan for what we thought would be the perfect Donkey Kong Country trip, but turned out to be something quite different and horrifying, but also super fun. Come along with me for a return to Universal Studios Osaka, and I'll tell you the spooky tales of everything I got to experience. The plan for our trip was to revisit Universal Studios Japan in Osaka, and then head up to Tokyo to visit Tokyo Disneyland and Tokyo Disney Sea. With some members of my family who weren't able to join us on our previous trip, it was a great opportunity to create some new memories with the rest of the family and revisit some of our favorite attractions and locations from our previous trip. And I do hopefully plan to make a return to Japan one day in the future, because it's such an incredible country with so many things to do, and I'd love to explore some other places as well. And of course make a return once again to these incredible parks. We visited during late October, which is the Halloween season, and Halloween is on a whole different level in Japan to what it is in Australia. Everything is decorated, all the restaurants, shops and everything. There's Halloween specials and pumpkins and people walking around in costumes all the time. It's super cool, especially if you're a fan of things that are spooky, which I am. Halloween is my favorite time of year. I absolutely adore it. So it was amazing to come back and fully enjoy this awesome time period at Universal Studios. We stayed at the Hotel Universal Port, which is located directly across the road from Universal Studios Japan and Universal Studios City Walk. The hotel is themed to Minions. There's Minions absolutely everywhere. It's a really great place to stay. The rooms are fantastic, they're very spacious, and you get a lovely view of the river outside as well as the skyline in the distance. And of course it's very conveniently placed directly across the road from the park and City Walk. I have visited Universal Studios Japan before, and if you're interested in hearing my first opinions on some of the rides, attractions, and areas, make sure to check that video out. In this video I'm going to talk mainly about the stuff I didn't get to experience on that first trip that we got to enjoy this time. It was really interesting revisiting Universal Studios Japan, because the first time was a bit of a shock to the system. I'd seen videos of Universal Studios parks, but that was my first time visiting one. It sort of built it up to be more on the level of like a Disney theme park in terms of immersion and theming and everything. It was very impressive, don't get me wrong, but it didn't quite reach that level for me, although there were a few exceptions in some areas. So returning to the park with my expectations set at a reasonable level and knowing what to be prepared for, I feel like I was able to enjoy it a lot more this time, for the most part, because unfortunately this trip didn't go entirely to plan. Every other person in my family, except for me, got very sick and had to stay in the hotel for a lot of the time, and we had to trim a few days off of our visits to the other parks, which was a huge disappointment for everyone. When you're visiting a country, paid all this money to visit and everything, it's really upsetting, and everyone tried to make the most of their trip. I felt really guilty that I didn't really get sick. It seemed like the rest of my family had picked up some kind of bug or something. Despite that, we did manage to get a few days in at Universal Studios. Some of them were good, some of them weren't so good. I'll go through each area of the park and what we got up to, starting off with the big addition to the park, Donkey Kong Country, which unfortunately, as I mentioned at the start of the video, we missed on our first visit by a hairbreadth. So we were super excited to get back there, especially to ride the new coaster. And this area is located in Super Nintendo World. We actually only got to visit Donkey Kong Country at nighttime, which was interesting. It's a beautiful area. You walk through this awesome barrel sort of entrance, and right off the bat you get an incredible first impression with Donkey Kong's treehouse and some bongos and a giant barrel food outlet and a shop inside of a crashed plane, and of course in the distance behind the trees, the minecart madness roller coaster. The area is incredibly beautiful. It's definitely a smaller space, but they've made use of it perfectly. It's very immersive. It's got a great lively atmosphere. If you grew up playing Nintendo games and the Donkey Kong games, you'll be a huge fan of the music that plays. It's a big nostalgic walk down memory lane. I'll start off with the biggest attraction, the minecart madness coaster, which we managed to get in the queue when when it wasn't too busy. We did have to wait just over an hour or so to get onto the ride, and the queue is pretty great. It's very well themed. It starts off outside and then you move into the temple itself. There's a few cool things to look at in the temple. A lot of it is quite bare and sort of a cattle pen style queue, which is fine because in the areas where it is themed, it's really well done. There's some animatronics and a few parts of the queue where you can see the coaster going past, which is really cool. So what about the coaster itself? Was it an enjoyable experience? Did it live up to the hype? Was it worth the trip all the way back to Japan for? 100%. This coaster is really cool. And it's funny because I didn't have the highest expectations for it because I had actually heard some mixed opinions about this ride. A lot of people had kind of negative things to say about it. They thought it was too short, it was too bumpy, but I didn't have any of those complaints. I was expecting it to be super short. I thought the ride length was actually relatively good. It went on for a decent amount of time. As for the bumpiness, I thought it enhanced the experience, ironically, because it felt in line with the theme. You're sort of riding these rickety old minecarts on unstable tracks and things. I thought it was great, and probably one of the best themed coasters I've ever been on, to be honest. Right off the bat, you go into the lift hill, which is like a launched lift hill, I believe, into the barrel, and then you get that first sort of leaping over the broken track effect, which is really unique experience. And the rest of the coaster, you're sort of weaving and winding out of the temple. There's lots of like red herring sort of dead ends where it looks like the track is going to end and then you find yourself on another piece of track. They use the effect incredibly well. It's all really cool. And there's lots of animatronics and displays throughout the ride and lots of great moments. One of my favorites is the splashdown towards the end of the ride, which is also really fun to look at from the outside. A great spot to view the coaster from. Yeah, overall just a really solid ride, and I only got to go on it twice, but both times were an absolute blast. As for the rest of the area, there's a few other spots to look at. They do have a big barrel-shaped drink outlet, which looked really nice. I didn't get to taste any of the drinks from here, but I believe they serve them in these cool themed barrel cups, which are really nice. There's also like a little interactive thing that you can do with the bongo drums, and a rhino comes out of a crate, which is really fun. This was very popular, and I love to see stuff like this where it's something everyone can enjoy. You don't have to go on the rides to enjoy your time in the area. It was very silly and very cute. There was also a really cool themed shop, which was inside a crashed plane, which was really cool. I thought that was such a nice way of theming a shop into the land. They also had Donkey Kong's Treehouse, which is a spot where they do photo opportunities, I believe. Unfortunately, Donkey Kong and Diddy Kong weren't out and about at nighttime when we visited, so we didn't get to meet them, but maybe next time if I get to go back. Moving back along into the Mario part of Super Nintendo World. On our previous visit, we got to enjoy both of the attractions here, the Mario Kart Dark Ride and the Yoshi's Island ride as well, which were both a lot of fun. But we did get to enjoy another part of this area that we didn't get to experience last time, which was the restaurant, because this is very difficult to get into, or at least it was the first time we visited, because you had to book, you had to get in like a lottery sort of system, I think, to even get the opportunity to book in there. But thankfully this time we were able to just walk in, and this was amazing. This is one of the coolest dining experiences I've ever had at a theme park. On one hand, you have the amazing theming, a 360-degree immersive theming experience. There's Mario themed stuff everywhere, and there's so much stuff to look at, and the music is awesome. But the thing that shone most about this restaurant experience was the staff. The staff here are next level, seriously incredible, so hospitable and welcoming and friendly, and everything they did was so thoughtful and kind. They really made a huge effort to make it a memorable experience for us, and I highly recommend checking it out. The food was fantastic, very tasty and themed. It was so cool, but the staff were the thing that I remember most. Another new addition to Universal Studios Japan that wasn't there on our first visit was the brand new Snoopy's Flying Ace Adventure Coaster. This is located in the kid area of the park. This little building area was closed on our first visit. I didn't even know it was in the park, to be honest, until Theme Park Ogre kept saying, let's go on the Snoopy coaster, and I was like, what? What Snoopy coaster? They don't have the Snoopy coaster here. But Theme Park Ogre was right. There is a Snoopy area, Snoopy Studios, and it's incredible. This is so cool. I can't believe I didn't know this was even there. Why did I not know that? I'm so stupid. And it's kind of themed to like a movie studio sort of thing with the characters from Peanuts. I've got to say, this is probably one of my favorite parts of Universal Studios Japan, which was a huge surprise. And there's so many cool little things to do in here. You can watch episodes from Peanuts. You can meet Snoopy and other characters. There's like a little interactive baseball game. There's heaps of other stuff that I didn't get to see. There's also a really cool shop with lots of great merchandise. And last but not least, Snoopy's Flying Ace Adventure, the Vekoma Junior Coaster, which opened in 2025. Right off the bat, my jaw was on the floor because this thing is incredibly well themed and integrated into the land. It's kind of difficult to see when you enter because it's sort of tucked behind the theming. It's very much in its own little immersive space. The theming is beautiful. It's all got that hand-drawn feeling. It feels very tactile and like something straight out of the cartoon. The coaster experience itself is very short, but I think this is honestly the smoothest roller coaster I've ever been on in the world. And it's such a charming experience. I was grinning the entire time from ear to ear. This is exactly why I love theme park attractions, because the thing just made me so happy. It was infectiously fun and gave me such a beautiful feeling of joy and childlike wonder. It was fantastic. I love this thing so much, and it's something you definitely don't want to miss. Another thing we got to experience on this trip was the Jurassic Park water ride, which was something we were really upset that we didn't get to experience on our first visit, because I love a good log flume attraction, especially one that's themed to a beloved film franchise like Jurassic Park. So it was great to finally get on this. Unfortunately, the first time we rode it was on a very rainy day. It was torrential rain. We had to wear ponchos and everything for the ride experience, so I didn't get to fully see everything because some of the animatronics in this thing are so tall that you really have to crane your neck up to get a full view of them, and I wasn't able to do that without drowning. But the rest of the ride I thought was really cool. The theming is fantastic, the animatronics are really cool. The highlight, of course, is at the end, the big T-Rex animatronic right before the drop, which is very intimidating. The drop itself is quite steep, it's quite intense. It's not the tallest drop in the world, but it definitely packs a punch, and the splashdown at the end is insane. You get soaked on this thing. I was very glad to be wearing a poncho. Theme Park Ogre and myself also got to experience this in the evening one of the nights, and since it was Halloween Horror Nights, they had a special version of the ride where you got to experience it in the dark. I thought that meant there would be like some lighting, some interesting nighttime lighting, but no, they literally meant this whole ride is in the dark. As soon as you enter the show building, it's literally pitch black darkness. You can't see anything. All the audio is still playing. You can hear the dinosaurs, the like radio chatter and everything. You just can't see a thing, which I thought was so unusual and so strange. It sort of defeated the purpose of that section of the ride, and it made it less thrilling in a weird way, but it was still a fun ride. As I mentioned, it was Halloween time when we visited Universal Studios, and during Halloween they have a few exclusive events. They've got Halloween Horror Nights, which wasn't something we planned to experience. I'll come back to that soon. And they also have the Pokemon Unstoppable Halloween Party, which I didn't really know anything about. I just knew there would be Pokemon somewhere in the park. What I didn't expect was to experience one of the coolest theme park shows I've ever seen. This thing is insane. This is like a DJ show that takes place towards the back of the park and draws an enormous crowd. You really have to get here early and find a good spot to fully enjoy the experience and see everything, because this is so busy and high in demand. It's like a full-on concert, and it seemed to be that Pikachu was a DJ, and there were two rival teams of dancers and Pokemon, and that's about all I understood. The rest was insanity in the greatest way possible. This show has such an amazing energy. You can really feel the excitement in the air, and the music is fantastic. It's such a blast. It gets you so pumped up and hyped. It's so high energy, so high octane. The dancers are incredible. Everything about it is fantastic. I got to enjoy this a couple of times. As I mentioned during our visit, Halloween Horror Nights was taking place at Universal Studios, which is something we didn't plan to experience because some members of my family are a bit older, and it seemed like sort of too scary and spooky. I'm kind of the only person in my family that really enjoys like horror stuff, unusually, because I'm usually a massive scaredy cat. I usually don't like thrilling roller coasters or things like that, but horror movies, I'm like 100% on board. I love terrifying horror movies. I did understand that it wasn't for everyone, so that was something I was willing to put aside. However, despite my family's reluctance to experience Halloween Horror Nights, we actually inadvertently got to experience it by mistake because we got caught up in the crowds, and we found ourselves in one of the areas of the park where the zombies come out. We quickly realized that the zombies were awesome. The zombies were so cool. Don't get me wrong, they were scary. They were going up to people, screaming and stuff and walking through the crowds, but it was just fun. It was really cool. It wasn't how my family imagined it to be, or myself, so that kind of like made it a bit more approachable for the rest of my family. It wasn't something we shied away from. In fact, we sort of started actively seeking it out. We would walk through the scary parts of the park where the zombies were out and about, people with chainsaws rushing at you, creepy tall things things walking around, weird like barbarian characters and things. It was awesome. I loved it so much. And as we walked through the park, I noticed that occasionally people would sort of gather in circles like they were expecting something to happen. I was so confused what they were doing. I decided to join one of the circles, and I realized that every now and then the zombies would burst out into a choreographed dance to this really catchy song by an artist called King New called So Bad. I think this song was actually made for this event specifically, I believe. I don't know, I can't confirm that. This song and this dance is so cool. It's honestly been stuck in my head ever since, and every time I listen to it I still get that cool energy, and I really want to go back and experience the event properly. And it also sort of opened my eyes to other horror-themed events, such as Fright Nights here in Australia at Warner Brothers Movie World, which I might actually consider visiting in 2026. If it's anything like this, I would absolutely love to check that out. There's also another Halloween-themed show during this event, which I honestly don't know anything about. There's some sort of iconic character that everyone's crazy about, in the same place where they do the Pokémon show, and we saw a little snippet of this. It was really fun, it was really cool, and unfortunately we were limited on time, so we didn't really have enough of a chance to check it out fully, but it was very cool. Also in the Harry Potter area, they do have the Death Eater characters walking around, and I know I said that the Halloween stuff wasn't threatening or scary around the rest of the park, but for some reason the Death Eaters were very intimidating, because they don't speak, they just come up to you and they stare at you and they cast spells, and it's really creepy. The whole area sort of becomes like a dynamic theater as well in a strange way. There's like a progressive show that takes place around different areas, so it's very exciting to walk around and see everything. We also got to enjoy some of the exclusive food for Halloween Horror Nights in one of the restaurants on the Main Street area, which was very tasty, and I would definitely eat that again. So that wraps up my visit to Universal Studios Osaka for 2025. Although it didn't go entirely to plan, and a lot of the time my family was ill, I still really enjoyed my time there, and I definitely recommend checking it out if you can visit one day. If you're interested in seeing my first impressions of the park and a more in-depth review, make sure to check out my first video where I really go deep into the Universal Studios. If you enjoyed this video, feel free to leave a like, a friendly comment, or subscribe for more, and stay tuned for some more trip reports from the other locations on my trip in Japan, as well as a sneaky couple of days at Hong Kong Disneyland. Before we finish, I'd like to give a huge thank you to all the members and sponsors of Team YumYum for supporting my content. I really appreciate it. Thank you so much.